I want to show you guys a super cool project that we're working on in this field here and a couple of other farms in southern Minnesota. My name is Bailey Tangen. I'm an extension educator at the University of Minnesota, and one of the topics I focus on is soil hydrology and how water moves through soils, especially how management practices influence how water moves through soils. We know that all crops rely on water, so we want to make sure that we have the right amount of water at the right time. I'm standing in this field in Nicollet County, Minnesota, and here we've got soybeans growing. Today is June 26, 2026, and this field has nice residue coverage, pretty good stand of soybeans, and the farmer is using no-till, cover crops, trying to reduce disturbance and really increase the biodiversity of their soils. So let's go take a look at this really cool project. A huge part of my job is talking to farmers about soil health, water, and a variety of other topics that revolve around keeping your soils functional and productive. So one of the best tools I can use to talk to farmers about their soil is just getting my hands dirty and digging in and looking at what's beneath the surface. I can use tools like augers, soil survey maps, but even better is when we can actually get a soil pit. So this was a pit that was hand dug by a team of researchers so that we can get a better look at how water moves through soil under different management systems. This project looks at a variety of different management practices that range along the spectrum of soil health. We've got fields that are using business as usual practices, so we would call these conventional management systems. We have fields that are using soil health practices, mainly row crops, and we also have fields using soil health practices through grazing livestock integration. One big question that remains for landscapes like these are, to what degree does management actually influence the way that water moves through soils, and what does this mean for landscape scale outcomes? So thinking about whether water rushes to a river and it can cause flooding and really fast flow, which can cause erosion. Or thinking about water moving through the soils and carrying mobile nutrients, which are expensive and we want to try to use the most efficient way as possible. And also, do we have enough water for our crops to sustain them in periods of drought and flooding, especially because we're seeing much more volatile weather patterns that farmers and their crops are facing. And the coolest part is seeing the methods that we're using to test this that we'll see in this pit here. To give you guys some context for the landscape around me, we are in south central Minnesota, Nicollet and Sibley County, where much of the area was glaciated by the Des Moines Lobe Glacier. And this glacier left behind these lovely rocks and finer texture materials. The landscape has this nice rolling topography. So there's these bumps and hills in the area and some lower lying spots. So here's where we get to actually dive in and see the really cool results. So one of the things that we did, besides taking a bunch of data here, we took these rings that we placed into the ground. We were able to get this blue colored dye that we actually pour into the ring, and from there we can see all the different networks and pathways that water takes in a soil. So we did that, we waited a day, we took out the ring, and we hand dug this pit. So one thing you might notice about this pit, just looking at my feet alone, is that we are standing in the water table. And talking to the farmer, we know that he has installed tile drainage here, which has changed the way that the water table actually sits in the profile. So we pour that blue dye, and then we want to see, how does water move in a profile? And what does this mean for outcomes such as a healthy growing crop, or whether or not water is going to move very quickly and run off the surface or run right to your tile lines? Some things to point out here is in this profile, we got very nice distribution of blue dye across the profile, and especially through the subsoil. And if you look closely, you'll notice that a lot of that dye is concentrated in these pathways that we call pores. Pores can be made by a variety of forces and agents, but the ones that we really want in our soils are these larger pores, and even mixture of pore sizes. So these larger pores, we call them biopores because they're formed from plant roots or through earthworm activity. We see that this blue dye is distributed not only in these pore channels, but also in these tinier little fracture networks, which is really great because this means that not only is there water spreading through the profile so that your crop has access to this, because plants can't move, they can just grow roots. But this means that there's these pockets of activity where water is actually touching the roots, as well as leaving these spaces for air and other activity to continue to occur. Here's a really nice pore channel that you guys can see here. And seeing how this pore pathway spreads tells us a lot of information. We want water to be distributed throughout the soil profile, so roots that live in the soil and the organisms that live there actually have access to that water. They also need to have a balance of air as well. We don't want to drown out roots or organisms. And what this means for farmers is that your crop could have the right amount of water at the right time, which is what we really want to see. But even more than that, it can help you be much more efficient with your nutrient inputs. Thinking about mobile nutrients like nitrogen or nitrate in its mobile form, as well as ammonium, we want to see that those nutrients can be captured and absorbed by the roots that are growing in the soil. And when we've got only a few discrete pathways where the nitrate, the ammonium moves by water without roots intercepting, we see that that can be more difficult for your plants to access. And we see that it can be less efficient for your overall crop production goals. In addition, if it's less efficient, that means more of that nitrate and other mobile nutrients are running into our waterways, and those are pollutants that we need to try to remove from our drinking water, and these can end up in your private wells if left untreated. We are doing this study at other sites in the area. I'm excited to show you guys the results from the different management systems that we're looking at across farms in the area, and show you this really great demonstration tool to show the pore network and how air and water and organisms can move and live in the soil.